But for those of you that don't know who Guy is, how to be a great GM, he is one of my heroes, one of my inspirations, and he always has amazing advice. He says, if you do any of these 10 things, don't be a game master. All right, let's see what he's talking about.
My favorite story was when I was told that I should never be a role player. Well, I didn't listen to them, but you should listen to this if you are even thinking of being a GM, DM, narrator, storyteller, creator, whatever you want to call it. If you're thinking of running games and you have one of these, don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy. These are the 10 things that if you possess one of them, you really should reflect and see if you can overcome it, remove it, because if you can't, you shouldn't DM. These are in no particular order. Number 1, you take yourself seriously.
Wow, we were just talking about that, weren't we? We were literally just talking about that. Robin says he's great, although a tad intimidating with the amount of videos he has. Yeah, he churns out content. I mean, he's got a business going on, you know, he's got employees, he's got people he's working with. So I totally get it. But yeah, you take yourself seriously. If you can't be self-deprecating, it can be a problem. It can be a problem. Let's see what he has to say.
If you take yourself seriously and everything that you create is this epic narrative, this glorious creative literature that no one else is capable of creating and that is absolutely flawless and will topple Tolkien or Martin or whomever you worship as a literary god, I'm afraid you're in trouble. Your game is only as good as you and your players. If you take yourself too seriously, you're going to try and make everything revolve around what you want as an outcome rather than where the story is going. Role-playing is not a serious game, folks. We're a bunch of adults pretending to be elves and fairies and pixies and goblins and gnomes and orcs running around in the bush. This is make-believe shit, folks. This is not a serious adult activity. So if you
I mean, I don't know if any of you feel called out by that, but that's absolutely true. What I just said earlier, we're rolling dice and pretending to be other people. I mean, if you take that too seriously, that says something about your character. You know, obviously there's a time and place to be serious because, like I said, it might take other people out of the immersion of the game. But if you think if you're arrogant enough to think that your game and everything that you're doing is the most important thing that's out there, the rest of the players are going to look at you like someone who thinks they're better than them. And then there's resentment, and then there's criticism, and then there's that personal private chat that they have behind your back where they talk shit about you because they know that they could never criticize you in front of your face because you would lose your shit. And that's what he's talking about. He's telling you, don't be a game master because you're basically going to waste everyone's time. This group is doomed. This group is doomed.
Take yourself seriously, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Number 2, if you cannot let the stuff that you've created be destroyed, the door is over there. Seriously, that's where the door is to the studio. You can.
All right, have you guys seen the D&D movie? There's a character in the D&D movie, the latest one, that is actually really cool in the movie, but in my mind, I was thinking, man, if the game master introduced this guy in our game, I would be so pissed. So there's a character in the D&D movie that appears, and he's like this badass, and he fights like 10 different people, and he's a game master NPC, basically. He's an NPC. He's a powerful NPC. And if I'm playing in your game and you introduce this powerful NPC, I better see them get killed. I better see them, you know, fall from grace. They better be the last bad guy that we have to fight at the end of the day. Because if you're just here to show me the cool characters that are super powerful in the game that you made up, then what are we doing here? Why am I here? Why am I here? And the bottom line of it is basically, if you are introducing something to the world, you better be ready for it to be destroyed. You know, don't have any darlings. And that's completely appropriate.
See behind me, there's no other doors. It's right over there. If you cannot let the stuff that you have created be destroyed, and destroyed in stupid ways, in ridiculous ways, in rubbish ways, or maybe even destroyed because no one even knew that they were there, you're in trouble. Your entire job is to create opposition to the player characters and watch as they obliterate, destroy, or overcome that opposition. You create a magnificent castle for the Dark Lord, watch as they bomb it from a distance, never entering into those corridors that you filled with beautiful traps. If that is something that is going to make you angry, upset, or unhappy, the game is all about adapting on the fly, adjusting, going with the flow, and enjoying watching the carnage. There is no way a player will ever destroy the perfect dungeon that you have designed. Their character might flood it, might wash it out, might turn it to mud, might completely ignore it, but you will still have it in a box or on a digital hard drive somewhere, but you have to let go. Don't try and force them to go to places or see the things that you've created.
So that's a very important subject that he's talking about. In the example that he gives, the players destroy a castle from a distance when the game master's intention was them to infiltrate the castle, go through the dungeons and the traps, and then finally come to this final room where they fight the big bad guy. Well, if the characters have found a way to circumvent all that and destroy the bad guy with ingenuity, then that's their own thing. 1 second. Then let them have their fun, man. Let them have their fun. I don't understand. It's not like all those things are going to be gone. Save it, use it on the next castle, use it on the next place, adjust it. If it's for a castle and the next place they're going to is like an underwater Atlantis kind of place, just adjust it to be appropriate for that place. That's all you have to do. You don't have to scrap entire ideas. If it's going to bother you that your players have found a smart and have found the path of least resistance to overcome your problems, then you're not going to have a good time, man. It's not for you. The gaming isn't, being a game master is not for you.
3. It is you, the great creator, who is solely responsible for the game's story and for the game's final outcome. That,
Ekarin says, it's worth to point out that there's a difference between being too serious and avoiding disruptions, though. Yeah, for sure. Ekarin brings a really good point up. If your players are disrupting the flow of the game because of their antics, you know, you could be like, all right, guys, should we just like not play today? Should we take a break? We're just cracking jokes. But also, it should let you know that, hey, your players are distracted. They're bored. And that's why they're resorting to, you know, disrupting the game, because they want to have fun and they're not having fun in your game. Okay. So you just got to figure out which of those two it is. And that's very important.
is a giant pile of bullshit, as they say. You are not the only one. You are not the most important one at the table. And if you think you are wrong. Yes, you are the only one who can theoretically run the game because you are the leader of the game, as it were. But that is as much power as you have. You are part of a team. And if you don't like working as part of a team, if you don't like other people contributing to your space, contributing to your environment, if you don't like other people making suggestions or even just assuming and adding things to your game space, don't be a DM. Go and write a novel, okay? Just don't. This is a collaborative thing. You really, really can't roleplay as a DM on your own. It's just not possible. I'm very sad about number 4 because I would love to do a demonstration.
So what he's talking about right there is very important on number 3. You are the conductor, basically. Let's say you make that entire giant castle and if you don't have your players to interact with it, you're just world building, all right? Write a novel, okay? Write a story. But if you're not taking into account that all the things that you made for your campaign are going to be interacted with your players, and they're going to adjust it. They're going to make changes to it, and they might even throw the entire thing in the trash. Then I'm sorry, man, you're in the wrong business. Okay, you're in the business of creating the world, and then after that, it's out of your hands. It's completely out of your hands. Okay, once the players set foot in your world, it is no longer just your world. It is a shared universe, and your players are going to interact with it the way they see fit. Okay, period.
Of number 4, where I just laugh and laugh and laugh for minutes and minutes and minutes, but my ribs unfortunately will not allow me to do this demonstration. You need to learn to laugh at yourself, because again, this is us being a bunch of kids sitting around a table telling a story. I don't care how complicated your narrative is or how amazingly wonderful your performances are as NPCs. You are still doing make-believe. We are having fun. You're going to try and do silly voices, or you're not going to do silly voices. You're going to try a cool idea and discover that it was actually dumb. You're going to try a puzzle, and your players are going to go, I have no idea how to solve this. You're like, but it's perfectly obvious if you just use the inverted algorithmic cosine rule. You need to learn to laugh at yourself and go, I made a mistake. That's on me. My bad, guys. I won't use advanced algebraic math again.
I mean, that's just good life advice at that point. You know what I mean? It's good life advice to tell someone to not take themselves too seriously. You know, it humbles you to learn about yourself and learn where your shortcomings are. And being self-deprecating actually makes you more charismatic. People are a lot more willing to become understanding and compassionate for you if you show them like, hey, I'm not perfect, you know, like I have issues. Because guess what? Those people have insecurities and issues too. So you're like, hey man, let's just be insecurity buddies, okay? And that's the best kind of friends that you can ever have. Philosopherus says, in my experience, it also feels like DMs that do that over prepare instead of just having some fun engagement points for the players without being too bothered how they get there or achieve the objective. 100%. I used to be one of those people. I used to be the kind of person that would have meticulous notes about every single NPC and every single interaction, and I almost never used any of that stuff because it wasn't appropriate. It didn't work. The player characters didn't need that NPC at that moment in time, and it just didn't work out in that way. So 100%, I'm with you.
My bad. Moving on. If you can't laugh at yourself, don't play the game. 5. If you think that you and your NPCs are the same person, and you get upset when your NPCs are made fools of, or are embarrassed, or are defeated, don't be a DM.
I mean, that's nuts, dude. That's nuts. Are there really people like that out there? Someone is so okay, I see what's going on. So what's happening is somebody has inserted themselves in the world, but they inserted a version of themselves that they think is better. So it's really their insecurities. They're like, I'm insecure, so I'm making an NPC that is the best version of me. And then the player characters dismantle that NPC in whatever way they see fit. And now that person is completely broken down. They're like, not only am I a nobody in the real world, I'm a nobody in my fake world that I made up too, because these players are making fools of me. That is a deep, deep self, like, insecurity kind of problem, dude. I don't know what to tell you if you're at that point. You know what I mean? You need therapy, you need friends, you need to be humbled, you need to be told that you're loved, you need a hug. I mean, that's nuts, dude. That's nuts. Django says, I've heard of players having a hard time separating from their characters, but never GMs from their NPC. Yeah, I've never heard, I'm with you. I've heard of players like, being kind of inconsolable after their character dies for a little while, like it affected them in a big way. So, I don't think that's healthy either, but I'd be a little bit more understanding of that because it might just be like an irrational kind of thing. But a game master of that level to be like that, I don't know. The problem of separating self from character has been a thing since Gary Gygax sold Dungeons and Dragons out of his trunk. Yeah, I'm sure it is. But it's a kind of a sad problem if it's a game master and an NPC.
No, I know what it's like. You've got your favorite NPC that you've set up as being this glorious superpower, and the players walk in and you do your beautiful monologue that would make Shakespeare himself tumble to the ground in shame, for naught shall he ever see such a performance again. And the player characters go, I pull my pants down and I moon the big bad, and then I fire a guiding bolt through my legs at him. Don't be insulted. Don't go, why? That's ridiculous. It might be, but that's what the player character wants to do, and you've got to roll with it. Your job.
Okay, I kind of take it back. If you have like this really cool NPC, you inserted yourself in the world, and your player farts a lightning bolt at them, and then the NPC dies. All right, I'll be mad with you.
Job is not to be insulted that they are simply demeaning your performance. Your job is to go, well, how would the big bad react? With shock, with disgust, with distaste? Well, you've got to deal with the mechanical effect first and then decide what to do with that. And the more you empathize with your NPCs, the worse it's going to get. You need to look at NPCs as an extension of the game, and you should want to torture them just as much as the player characters want to do it. Put them in awkward, horrible situations. I know it feels uncomfortable, but if you are really uncomfortable doing that, and you will use sneaky tricks or powers to position them so that they don't happen, don't be a DM. Numbers.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add anything to that. I think it's a big problem if you insert yourself into an NPC and then get upset if something happens to them. You know, I think maybe don't insert yourself if that's what's going to happen. I personally, if I inserted myself and my players just completely demolished the NPC, I would laugh like so hard, because I'm like, yeah, of course they're going to do that. They're my friends. If your friends aren't shitting on you, then are they really your friends?
Oh, I don't like keeping track of stuff. I don't make notes. I don't write anything down. I don't even remember stuff. I mean, that's for the players, right? If you don't...
Oh, no. Oh, no. You can't... Look, it's okay if you forget the name of the town that your players went through 12 sessions ago, okay? It's okay if you forget that. But if you're forgetting, like, big parts of the history of your game, then it shows the players that you really are not as committed to it as they are. And then it makes them feel like, okay, so then what's the point? You know, like, if the game master doesn't care about this game, then why do I care? Why should I commit any time to caring about my character?
Don't keep track of stuff. And this hurts me because I am not great at keeping track of stuff, but by goodness, I keep track of stuff. I write it down. I have learned over many, many years that you have to do this. Doesn't matter how complicated or how simple those notes are, as long as you can recall what happened in the last session and your players are not having to remind you as the DM what's going on, then that's fine. But if you don't like keeping track of stuff, if you just couldn't care, don't become a GM. It's going to be so frustrating for your players that they basically have to run the game and they're using you effectively as a mechanical device that's going to ask for calls and things. That's not a GM. That is what an AI is going to become and replace you with, by the way.
Jesus. All right, guy. I know. ChatGPT's coming for us. But he makes a very good point. Listen, if you got a player on your table, by the way, that's taking really good notes, I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, there is favoritism. All right. That's my favorite player. Okay. Because he's actually taking notes. And that means when I make a mistake and I do things wrong, I can always lean on that other player. So send the message out there that it's okay to take notes at my table. Okay. And to remember things. Strive. What's up, Strive? Anything you bring into the world is a tool that can be used. Keep that toolbox. I agree. Keeping track of stuff, my experiences has been a group effort. A friend that's DMing these Saturdays often has us do a recap of last session rather than themselves. One person would start, and then we would all join in. I used to kind of do the same kind of thing, but I stopped expecting my players to be that invested in the story and what's going on in the plot, because and then I would be like upset, you know, like let's say we're all at the table and two of my players are like, oh man, I honestly don't remember. I didn't really take notes. I was just like having fun playing the game. And I used to be upset at that player. But then I realized, why do I have these expectations of somebody? You know, that's not how they don't like to have fun that way. They don't like taking notes and remembering the plot. They're just happy to be here. So I don't have that expectation of my players, okay? The expectation is of me. I'm supposed to be the one to remind them. A lot of time comes in between our games, a lot of stuff happens, and you can't expect everybody to take notes on everything that's in your world. You know what I mean? I just don't think that it's feasible. Philosopher says, I do actually like it sometimes when my players don't take rigorous notes, since it means we can also keep focus on the main story instead of getting too sidetracked with arbitrary things and info. Yeah, and then you can also change things in the future, which I am guilty of doing. I'm like, they don't remember this stupid guy's name and who he is and who he was. I'll just change the name. Sure enough, we get to the table. None of them have noticed. They're like, oh, yeah, we dealt with this guy before. But none of them said his name has changed. His demeanor has changed. He went from neutral to bad guy over like a couple sessions. You know what I mean? So it's good on that sense. Darren Johnson says, I use my phone to record all my sessions audio-wise. Then after the game, I always review the recording, make additional notes from that. Dude, you know, that's something that I learned about whenever I started recording my actual play sessions. Was I have a recording of our game. I'm like, oh my God, I could just go back and look at what I need to change and what I need to remember. And I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot that NPC, that thing happened with that NPC. I got to bring it back later on in the story. And if I would have just let that thing go, you know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Number 7, although if you have got to number 7, you may not suffer from this, but do not become a GM if you don't like listening to others. If you find it difficult to listen to other people talking because your own head wanders off doing other stuff, you're in trouble. The whole
I just didn't want to
game.
I didn't want to pause on a crazy moment because I love Guy. He'd be like, gee, thanks for pausing on that moment. But anyway, yo, what's up, Dustin? By the way, we watched one of your latest videos in the beginning. All right, Zergash, thank you so much for coming by. I assume it's you, Dustin. I don't know. I'm wondering. It's infinite-sided dice. But yeah, so yeah, maybe you're the type of person who has some kind of condition where it's difficult for you to pay attention. And that's totally normal. There's plenty of people out there that live that kind of life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wouldn't go ahead and say like you can never be a game master, but I would say that that's something that needs to be addressed on your end if you want to continue being a game master. You need to find a way around it, find a way to work with it, because it's going to be difficult for you to be a game master when you don't like listening to other people. Other people are going to have things to say, all right? And they're going to be a part of your game, and their opinion matters just as much as yours when it comes to your world. So you have to pay attention to that. Dustin says, there are infinite-sided dice says there are advantages to both GM recap and focus the players in on... Oh, to both. GM recap can focus the players in on central plot, but a player recap can help the GM know what the players are interested in. I flip back and forth which I like. Yeah, that's a really good point, Dustin, because the thing that the players remember is the thing that stood out in their brain the most. You know what I mean? They're basically telling you, of all the things that happened in our last session, the one thing that I've taken with me up to this point isn't the name of that random NPC that we interacted with. It was this thing that happened. And it tells you like, ooh, okay, the player really likes that kind of thing, and that impacted them the most. If more than one player have that same memory, then you know, like, okay, that's my gold mine. That's the thing that I can come back to anytime I need to really get these guys going. You know what I mean?
Is about talking, whether it is online or around a table. You have to listen to the people sitting next to you, and you actually have to understand what they're saying. If you find it difficult to listen to them, do not become a GM, because there is nothing more frustrating than you outlining your plan of what your character is going to do and the DM going, sorry, what did you want to do again? That's awfully bad etiquette. You really shouldn't do it. I know there are times when I find myself doing that. I stop the game, I apologize to the player, and then I refocus on what the player is saying. It is critical to be able to listen in this game, and if you are not a good listener, either learn how to become one, or you can join the others out that door.
Yeah, believe it or not, I have this issue. I have an issue where I sometimes, I'm so lost in thought in the last thing that happened that I'm running scenarios in my head, and then I realize like, oh shit, the players have been talking to me and each other this entire time. I should have been paying attention because they're saying things that are important. So, you know, I would definitely, but so what I do is I stop and I go, hey, sorry guys, I was thinking of something else. My mind was occupied. Can we go back and let me know what you guys were just talking about, what you just said, or say it again, please? And then I hit it again from there. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you incapable of being a game master. If you ignore it, I would say that makes you incapable of being a game master, and you just let it go, because it's like the player had the trust in thinking that you were listening to them, giving them the respect that they give you when you're going on and on about Night City 2045, the sky is red and it's raining blood, and everybody around you is just sitting there quietly listening. If they're sitting down and paying attention, the least you can do is give them the same respect.
Number 8, if you don't let other people finish talking because you interject, you cut in front of, or you anticipate what they're going to say, why? You shouldn't do that in real life anyway. That's just bad manners. But around the gaming table, how dare you try and anticipate what your players are going to say?
Yeah, I've found myself having this issue before too, by the way. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I got to be hyper vigilant and be like, oh, okay, they're talking to me, and I have to respond and I have to talk. When really what was happening is they're just trying to role play, and I'm getting in the way of it by being a game master. You know what I mean? And being a rules guy, instead of telling them this is what happened and then that happened. The best moments I found in my games were where I just shut up and let my players talk. And they talk amongst each other. And even though they're talking to an NPC, the NPC will literally be standing there saying nothing, and the players are just talking to each other. It's the best. It works out so many ways.
Let them say it. Remember, you're supposed to be listening to them. So if you're cutting them off, well, that's just bad. There's no other way to say it. If you cut people off, if you don't like letting people finish what they're saying, if you don't like them, if you want to keep pushing them and rushing them because you're impatient, DMing is not for you. DMing is all about being patient. It's about waiting for the players to finish making up their minds. It's about waiting for the players to take actions. It's about waiting for the right moment, not about rushing the right moment. When you try and rush it, you will find your game feeling like you are pushing the players in directions that they don't want to go in.
Yeah, it's important to let them explore the situations that they're in. If you're rushing them to get to the end of the plot, maybe it's a time constraint thing, but you have to be cognizant not to do that too often, because then the players are like, oh, I guess I have to sit on this ride and be taken.
and it is no longer role-playing. It's now a game of I'm trying to steer these cats out the door. Number 9, if you like salad, out the door. That's all. If you are someone who becomes impetuous, or if you pout, or if you are a bad loser and you make up ridiculous things because, well, you're bored or you're just over it, that is discourteous to your players. If you are getting to a point where you are feeling frustrated with the game or with the players or with the outcomes, you need to step back, ask the players to take a moment, and perhaps even, heaven forbid, discuss it with the players. Hey guys, I'm getting a feeling that your characters are very irreverent of the situation, and I feel like you wanted to play a investigative series where King Charles is running around investigating stuff, but you're not taking the whole monarchy thing seriously. You're not behaving like monarchs would behave. Is that a problem for you? Is that something? And if they go, no, this is cool, we're having fun, either you have to adapt or you need to say to them, well, this is not the game that I wanted to run, so would someone else like to run it? Don't try and force it back to the way that you want to run it. Don't try and punish the players for doing what they're wanting to do. This is a failure to communicate. Just as the salad is a failure to provide food or nourishment or sustenance for anything other than, whatever it is that can survive on salads, you need to be able to listen to your players, adapt to what they're saying, and question what they're doing. It's a two-way street here, folks. And if you can't do that, you're going to have a very, very unhappy time. And as a result, your players will have an unhappy time and the whole thing will just dissolve.
So Nimbos says in chat, I'm currently dealing with the hypervigilance because I feel like I have to give a reaction for almost everything to make it feel alive. I realize there's flaws in that logic, so I'm trying to get better. So my advice to you is to, when you find yourself when you're playing and your players are talking, just don't say anything unless they're actually talking to you and asking you a question. Try this experiment where you don't say anything, and maybe there's going to be a little bit of silence, and you think to yourself, oh, I'm supposed to fill in this silence. It's okay if that silence is a few seconds longer, because in those few seconds, another player might chime in and they go, well, look, I've been thinking about it. I don't know if this is a good idea. What do you mean it's not a good idea? Well, that thing that happened last session, this, and that. And now your players are playing the game. They're playing the game. You don't need to talk, okay? They're playing the game. And unless you're going to be talking about the same subject they're talking about and joining in on their conversation, then you don't really need to talk about it. Then when there's a lull in the game and there's a silence and you feel like nobody's filling it, when you guys are playing together, they'll all start looking at you. That's why like body language and stuff playing in person is really important. They'll all look at you, and that's how you know, oh, okay, now it's my turn to continue the game because the game has come to a stop, okay? It's all about just knowing the balance of when the game has come to a stop and when the players are just taking their time to role play. Philosopher Ferris says, I always had one of the requirements that after the game players could give also feedback to each other on how to move forward to make sure frustrations don't slowly build up over time. Yeah, resentment and frustrations, a gaming group is like a relationship. If you sweep things under the rug, it will boil up to the surface later on in life. I don't know. I use like two different analogies, the boiling and the sweeping. I don't know how I got them two together. But anyway, if you let things go, then they will come back with a vengeance. Always communicate about those kinds of things. If you have a gut feeling, give them a call and be like, I like to call my players and just get their feedback on the last session, and I want to know how you felt about what happened. And 9 times out of 10, there was a reason why you made that phone call. Okay, something happened at the table, and you want to address it. And it's good to address it right away, so there isn't built up resentment and hatred or any of that stuff, and you guys can come to a resolution as soon as possible.
Number 10, the last one. This is the one that I feel puts the most pressure on DMs. It is also the one that I feel is the wrong one. It is this notion that the DM is solely responsible for the fun at the table. if you feel that you are burdened with creating fun at the table, and that is your sole aim, is to entertain people at the table, step back. Step back. Because you are not an entertainment piece, you are not providing a service for your players, unless you're a professional DM, in which case shut up and provide your service.
Yeah, he's making a lot of good points there. It doesn't completely fall upon you to make it a fun session, okay? The fun is important, but everybody needs to work together to make the fun. You're literally there to interpret the rules. And you came up with a story that you think is interesting, and you need the players to interact with it for it to really meet its potential. And once you get to the table and your players start playing, the only responsibility you have is to interpret the rules. That's it. They're going to roll dice. They're going to have things that they want to do. Just be there to tell them how they can do it.
Because you're being paid for it. Okay? You are not there to provide entertainment. You are there to enjoy and engage with your fellow players to collectively create entertainment for all of you. The fun at the table is just as much your responsibility as it is everybody else's at the table. So if you feel like you have to go in with jokes and with gags and with amazing ideas and all of this kind of stuff, and that the players just have to sit there and either absorb what you're giving them or they are not responsible at all, you are setting a very bad precedent. And that is something that we don't want. You don't want it either. If you wanted to be a stand-up comic, go out that door and be a stand-up comic. You'll have more fun, trust me. Those are my 10 little things about what you
Okay, there it is. That's the end of the video. If you guys enjoy Guy's videos, if you enjoy this video, make sure you guys go to How to Be a Great GM. I actually have his book here. This book right here. I interviewed Guy about this book recently. It's on the channel, so if you guys want to check that out, we go into this book. This book literally has everything you need to be a great game master, and it's called The Practical Guide for a reason, because it's a practical book. But all the ideas that you heard in that video are stuff that you'll see in this book as well. But great video, a little bit controversial on the title, but I think I agree with almost everything that he says. I don't know if there was anything that he said that I disagree with, but yeah, it's good stuff.